Now, you always hear people telling you to find your purpose or your happiness. Follow your dreams and don't let anything stop you. You read those motivational Monday quotes over and over again, and you ask yourself, what is my happiness? Well, today I'm going to share with you my journey and how I found one of the keys to my happiness. And I'm sure you've guessed it by now, it's traveling. But it's not your typical world traveler where I have a long bucket list that I'm checking off. No, the reason why I travel is to learn more about myself. It's about leaving my comfort zones, facing my fears and insecurities, meeting people from all over the world, learning from different societies, and growing from it. A lot of you are probably thinking, but Leanne, not everyone has the opportunity to travel, especially when it's traveling for leisure. And that's right. There are several barriers that would stop people from venturing out and traveling the world, whether it's social barriers, economic barriers, religious barriers, or even health barriers. And although the most common barrier that most of us face today is financial and having access to resources that allow you to travel within a certain budget. However, what you need to do is change your mindset as to why you are traveling. You'll then realize that money is no longer a huge barrier or even the main factor. When you begin to travel for the purpose of learning about people and growing from the country's locals, you're no longer looking to stay in the most luxurious hotel or eating at the best rated restaurants. You start living amongst the locals further away from the famous landmark, eating at a local restaurant where you're the only foreigner there. And trust me, that experience is worth the most. That's the beauty of traveling. It isn't about the landmarks that you need to check off your list or the pictures that you need to capture. Now, don't get me wrong, you obviously need to take those pictures, much like the ones I'll be presenting to you today. However, it's beyond the landmarks. It's about the memories you create, getting to know those from all over the world, sharing moments and stories with people that you would have never imagined yourself meeting. Now, I want you to imagine yourself in a foreign country. You're in a small village far away from the city, and you happen to come across this very cute old grandma working in her garden. You walk over, and grandma welcomes you with open arms and a huge smile. She begins to laugh and gestures over to join her in her garden. You walk over and you sit with her. She gets up and starts picking grapes off the branch, wipes it with a small cloth, and starts feeding you. You two are laughing and enjoying the beautiful nature while speaking no common language. However, you feel like you understand one another. Grandma then holds your hand and walks you around her house where she starts pointing out picture frames on her walls and showing you her beautiful family. How are two people communicating if there's no common spoken language? Well, it's communication through gestures, smiles, and the look of the eye. Once the sun started setting, Grandma went inside her little home, pulled out a pan and a wooden spoon, and banged on it a few times. And for that one moment, you start praying to yourself and hoping you haven't made a mistake. What were you thinking being at a random stranger's house? Was this going to be a scene of The Walking Dead? Why is she banging on her pots and pans? And all of a sudden, you hear her neighbors coming out of their homes. They yell a few words back and forth, and then they come over with their supper, music, and traditional sweets. Little did you know that that banging on the pots and pans was just a way of her calling over her neighbors when you thought it was a calling to your death. You end up spending the rest of the night underneath the stars, learning a traditional dance and feeling welcomed in a place where you would have never, ever imagined yourself staying. What a night you'll never forget. So this is actually a night that I will never forget. It's the time I met Grandma Safa in a small village in Srebrenica in Bosnia. This is the reason why I love to travel and explore and do things that one wouldn't typically do in a foreign country. When I tell this story, people think I was insane. How did I trust a complete stranger? Well, that's the thing. Traveling to me is not about the places you see. There's so much more to that. It's about the people you meet on the way. You see, I've learned over the years and through my traveling that human interactions is the richest you'll ever be. These are the experiences that will teach you more than life would ever teach you. My travel stories and experiences are some of the most cherished memories of my life. It's honestly what shaped who I am today. Now, another common barrier that I used to face when traveling around the world was making sure to pick a location that I would feel welcomed. So, as a visible Muslim woman, I face various barriers when choosing my next destination. You'll find me on my phone Googling the percentage of Muslims in this country or the percentage of solo women travelers. But what allowed me to no longer think in such a way was when I gained my confidence, which is a very crucial characteristic when it comes to traveling. Being confident in yourself and allowing yourself to go through whatever it takes for that travel experience. Now, discrimination is very prominent in our society. I'm sure each one of us sitting here today has probably faced at least 10 different accounts of discrimination. So, when traveling, one tries to look to visit countries where they would fit in. So, when I was visiting Bosnia a couple years ago, I was looking into how much it would cost me to rent a car from Bosnia, keeping in mind that financial aspect. And I realized if I rented a car from a neighboring country, which was Serbia, a country in Southeast Europe, I could save more than half the cost. So that's exactly what I did. I decided to fly into Serbia as those flights were much cheaper, and I rented a car from Serbia. And then I began my Balkan tour journey. However, for those who do not know, Serbia is actually a country with a majority of Christians and less than 2% Muslims that look like me. So making the decision to go to Serbia was a little difficult due to the differences in discomfort I knew I would be in. However, remember how I said traveling was also about breaking through your comfort zones and insecurities? Well, here it was. Now, not only am I a Muslim, a woman, which already puts me at a disadvantage while traveling, but I also happen to be a vegetarian. So now here I am in Serbia, a country I would have never imagined myself visiting due to the religious differences and the demographics of those living there. So I began looking for a vegetarian-friendly restaurant. I find this very small mom and pop shop. So I walk in, and I'm very excited to finally eat a good meal. But to my surprise, the man behind the counter had his jaw drop wide open. He looks at me and says, "Welcome?" Before I ordered, I struck up a conversation, which is something I typically do everywhere I go. "Ah, you have falafel here." And falafel is this vegetarian patty. So I asked him, "Where does your cuisine originate from, sir?" He smiles huge and proud and says, "Jordan, a Muslim country in the Middle East." Pa now has tears in his eyes. He says, "You know, I moved from Jordan to Serbia over 27 years ago, and I have had this shop for 23 years. And this is the first time a woman looking like you walks into my store." He begins speaking to me in Arabic, a language that I also happen to speak. We chatted away for about half an hour. He was telling me all about his journey from Jordan to Serbia and how he raised his children here. He even insisted that I do not pay for my meal and kept telling me how happy he was that I did not misjudge Serbia or choose not to visit a country just because of its religious population. "Thank you for finding me," he says, "and thank you for visiting Serbia." You see, this was my life lesson on how to not judge a country solely on religious diversity. It taught me to not have misconceptions that society tends to embed on you, and instead break those barriers and divisions. Now, not only did my visit to Serbia, a country that again, I would have never seen myself visiting, change my life and my perspective on traveling to new countries that are not on my typical list, not only was I greatly impacted by this experience, but also the others that you come across while you're traveling, the experience and memory you leave them with. The important key factor, however, to making these memories is not leaving a story like that in Serbia. Rather, bring those stories home and speak about the difference they have made in your life. When you venture out and learn such valuable lessons, it's very important to grow from it. Start viewing your own country, home, and society with a different lens. Appreciate the little things around you. We're very lucky to be living in Canada, a very multicultural country where you would meet people from all over the world right here. However, the difference is you're meeting these people in Canada, not in their home countries and societies. That's the difference. After traveling and learning so much from the different societies, you can then begin to strike up conversations in your local cafes and restaurants. When you begin to bring your experiences home, That's when you know that your travels are greatly impacting you and those around you. We share so many similarities with people from all over the world, a lot more than we could ever imagine. Don't let a few barriers stop you from traveling and learning. Who would have ever thought I would find someone in a country where I strongly believed I would not fit in? But to my surprise, not only did I meet someone that spoke my mother tongue, but was also from the same country. Now take all those barriers that stop you from booking your next destination, and instead, look at all the motivators that will happily have you booking away. Allow that desire to cultivate in social interactions, the desire of learning from different societies, the personal desire of growing and learning about yourself, the skills that you will learn and build while traveling. Take the risk. Get out there, meet people like Grandma Sefa or Pa from Serbia that would make you realize how simple and beautiful life can be. How spending time with your neighbors, meeting strangers, and sitting underneath a sky lit of stars and sharing a moment. It's learning about different cultures and societies and bringing that home. We all hold that passport, our identity to the world. Use it to your advantage, cross those borders, and imagine a world without borders and barriers. The same way a simple virus may travel through all of us, disregarding age, sex, gender, wealth, race, it saw no difference. It traveled right through borders and left an effect on many of us worldwide. We turn on the TV and it's the only topic spoken about for the entire year. And this is a prime example as to why we should also not limit ourselves. Borders and barriers are put into place to only discriminate against each other, who can enter and who would be denied. Now imagine a world without borders.